I feel, limiting beliefs, just like anybody else. I say, who am I to do this thing? But the more I just own it, and I think I found, and I learned this from John Maxwell, is that it's not about you. So it's not about me and why I'm nervous and why I'm scared and why I don't want to get up there and, oh, does my hair look okay? And all of these ridiculous things. It's about what value can I add to people. And what I've come to realize over this past year is that I have a lot to offer, and it never really even occurred to me how much I had to offer. I don't know why. It just didn't. And it's, you have to get past the what do they think and what are they going to think of me and the who am I to do the thing. How you may have prepared your child to get out in the world, but it never occurred to you to prepare yourself. And I found myself in that spot not that long ago. And I had to figure out who I was, because for 20 years, I was Joey's mom, and that was it. I was Joey's mom. Everything revolved around that. That was my one job, and I loved that job. And I found myself in a place where I didn't know what to do anymore.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the MindShift Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Evans. I'm excited to have you here with me today. Today's a treat for me. I am reconnecting with someone I've met probably 15 or so years ago, maybe even 17 years ago. And it's my good friend, Stacy Mulligan. Stacy is a Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, and coach, and she is a DISC behavioral consultant. She's an engaging speaker with a passion for inspiring others to fulfill their potential. Stacy's also a dynamic entrepreneur. I remember when we first met, she was in the fitness industry, and I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about that journey. But she is known for her inspirational speaking. She also has a background in real estate and a very interesting passion for baking, which you can find all over her social medias. I'm excited to have you here, Stacy. Welcome to the MindShift Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
I first want to ask you about your journey through Maxwell. And that's what actually got us here today, because while we are connected on social, we've known each other for, again, plus of a decade. I saw that you had just finished Maxwell, certified speaker training or certified coaching and training. Tell us a little bit about Maxwell team and how you got started with that.
Yes, so it's interesting how I actually got started. I feel like everything in my life goes from one little question and then it turns into this massive thing that I wasn't expecting. So I had asked my friend who she thought I could go and see, like a Tony Robbins type. Where would I go? Who should I watch? And she said, John Maxwell. And I said, okay. She said, you know what? You should get Maxwell certified. And I said, why would I do that? And so I looked into it, and I think within days I signed up for the program. And I just recently in March went to the IMC, which is the International Maxwell Conference, where all the people go to become, officially certified. And the process was very interesting. I learned so much about myself, and really what I learned most about was that I loved DISC, because DISC was an extra portion of the Maxwell training. And once that was invited into my life again, I thought, God, I love DISC. I love everything about it. It's just so intriguing to me. And so I just went with that. But the program is amazing. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, anyone listening to this right now, if you're an entrepreneur or if you've been around leadership at all, which is what this audience is, you know that John Maxwell is the legend of leadership, right? And so it is exciting. I'm sure it's an exciting journey. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. You talked about DISC and how you enjoyed DISC. I certainly want to unpack that, because I've been around and familiar with DISC for probably coming up on 20 years. I actually, before our call, I had to go back and look at my very first DISC report, and it was 2004. So that's roughly 20 years. I think I've taken 3 or 4 since then. And, it keeps giving me the same analysis. So I guess I'm stuck with myself, but we'll talk we'll talk more about that later. But Stacy, let's jump into a little bit of your backstory. Who are you? Where are you from? What got you here?
Ooh, who am I? Okay, so I am Stacy Mulligan, right? I actually grew up in South Florida. We moved from New Jersey. This is the way backstory. Went to college in Pennsylvania, to some hoity-toity college that, I didn't belong in, I didn't fit in, and I have a degree which has done me, I think, no good. Because
What kind of degree was that?
I started out in accounting, in business, and in my last year I changed my major to marketing, so I had to redo everything, all my majors. But I do love marketing, and I think I love the people aspect of it, but there is a part of me that loves the numbers and loves that it's it has to add up, but I don't want to do that every day. So I did the thing. I moved to Vegas. My God, I moved to Vegas 25 years ago. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how I'm still here after all that time, but I'm still here. And I got into a few things, tried to stay at home with my son. My son's 20 now, so I tried to stay at home with him as much as I could. So I did jobs before working at home was a thing, right? I figured out how to work from home, how to do the thing so I could be there. And I dipped my foot in the pool of personal training. I was a personal trainer for seniors, and I loved that. Oh, my heart loved that so much, to see these people progress. And then I got into real estate, and I did that. I had to let go of my training business, which was very sad for me, but I still kept all my people, which was really nice because I made lifelong friendships there. And now, I figure every 7 years I kind of regrow a new skin and I regrow a new career, and that's what happens. I was in training for about 7 years, and I turned over to real estate, and I'm about the 7-year mark, and I've decided, I'm going to branch out, and I still do real estate, but I'm branching. I'm just following what I feel like I should be doing. So,
right.
Yeah.
I love that story. And it's funny, as I thought about a theme of our discussion today, and I'd love to have you speak into this a little bit, and that is the power of the pivot. Because I've known you now for, again, call it late 2008, 7, 9, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we did meet when you were the fitness trainer. And I do remember the passion. And I remember finding that niche, which is also going to lead us to a little later in the conversation, the niche that you have, or the audience that you are speaking to and want to serve in your current work. But I thought about what is the theme of what I know about Stacy and how I've watched her journey through social media, mostly because we haven't seen each other in a while. But and I thought about pivoting, because when I saw certified, John Maxwell speaker, trainer, coach, I'm like, oh, she's made another pivot, because I did know that you were in real estate. And of course, I know what some of your personal passions are, because I see those on social. And so talk a little bit about pivoting and what that has been like for you. You sort of just alluded to it, following, just taking that, following what feels like the right next step. Talk about pivoting as you see it.
Yeah, I would say maybe I'm the queen of pivoting. I would like to I should have worn my tiara. I have a tiara. I just have it. Somebody gave it to me. I would never buy myself a tiara, but it's nice to wear sometimes. But I do feel the need to pivot, and I think part of it is that once I feel like not that I've mastered something, but that I'm comfortable and I feel like I've done all I can do, I feel like I have to do something else. And that's why I wind up pivoting and just going to the next thing. And I really just I listen, right? And, they say when the opportunity is knocking on the door, open the door. Well, I open the door. A lot of times I'm scared to death to go through the door. Most of the time I'm scared to death, I should say. But I take baby steps, and then before you know it, I'm going from, hey, who should I go and listen to hey, maybe people are going to come and listen to me. I don't know how that happened, but that's what happened. So.
Oh, I love that story. So a couple admissions there. I think listening audience, you can feel this, right? I think there's this stigma that when you see someone doing things that you think that they've got it all figured out. And what you just said is, I'm scared most of the time, but I do it anyway, right? And I think that's a great encouragement for our listening audience today, which is, if something in your heart feels like it's time to move, move. You're not a tree. You're not stuck. And I think that's something I learned from Jim Rohn back in the day. If you don't like something about what you're doing, you feel like, as you said, you reached the pinnacle. You figured out it. You figured it out. It's no longer motivating you. It's not a passion. I think some people are afraid to pivot and go do something else. And I love the way Jim Rome said it. He was like, if you don't like something about your life, move. You're not a tree. And
I
so it
love
was
Jim
just,
Rohn.
oh, isn't he the best?
He
So
is. He is.
rest in peace, Mr. Jim. You've
Yeah.
been super influential. Um, Talk a little bit about the, um, so you mentioned kind of reaching this sort of 7 year mark, this not necessarily that it happens every 7 years, but what do you think is the underlying desire when you moved from fitness and moved to real estate and now moving to coaching, speaking, and training? What is that sort of internal? And I'm leading up to where we talk about disc, because I'm interested to know if there's something in your disc profile that maybe identifies that. But what do you think gives you that need to make the move?
Yeah, I think it's some kind of stirring inside me. It's a um, you can do more message. It's a you can get to more people, or you could be doing this, so why are you doing that still? And it just sort of, I guess I'm uncomfortable in the space that I'm in. Although moving to the new space is super uncomfortable. It's the worst. It's like, oh my gosh, I live outside my comfort zone all the time, and it's so uncomfortable out there. But the things I've accomplished in the last year are leaps and bounds beyond anything I did before, because I was just so scared. And I'm like, no, I'm going to live here in this little happy place, even if it's not my happiest place. I'm happy enough, I'll stay. And now I'm not staying. So
Hmm.
watch out.
I love it. You said I live outside my comfort zone, and I'm always scared.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's refreshing, though, right? Because there's just this thing that everyone needs to feel like, our natural instinct, right? Our human biology, our sociology. I think Maslow's hierarchy of needs defines it at that very base level, that we want security, we want safety, right? These are basic human needs. And I know we're uh, talking about an element of growth as we talk about pivots, because in most cases you wouldn't pivot unless you weren't looking for growth in some way, shape, or form, right? And so I think that's what's interesting. I'm thankful that you spent some time on pivoting, because I have one more question. When you're pivoting, does it ever cross your mind, that to the outside world or to yourself, that you're pivoting because you failed? Or do you really look at pivoting as, no, I'm going to explore the next level of me?
Yes, very good, deep question. So I definitely feel, limiting beliefs, just like anybody else. I say, who am I to do this thing? But the more I just own it, and I think I've found, and I learned this from John Maxwell, is that it's not about you. So it's not about me and why I'm nervous and why I'm scared and why I don't want to get up there, and oh, does my hair look okay, and all of these ridiculous things. It's about what value can I add to people. And what I've come to realize over this past year is that I have a lot to offer, and it never really even occurred to me how much I had to offer. I don't know why. It just didn't. And it's you have to get past the what do they think and what are they going to think of me, and the who am I to do the thing. Um, and I struggled with that a lot at the beginning, especially when I was considering, moving away from real estate. And it's hard. It's hard to let go of the old you. It's very hard, because you love the old you. You're comfortable with the old you. You know the old you. Everybody knows the old you. And when you become the new and improved, I always say I'm becoming Stacy 2.0. Who's coming with me? Not everybody. And so I have to leave some people behind, and that's scary. And some people get offended, some people get upset, some people get jealous. But I find that the people that stay with me are the people that are growing with me, and those are the people that, need to be with me and that I can help and lift up. So
That was profound. That was profound. I mean, literally, it's like, hey, I'm going to become a better me. And if you're not with me, that's cool. We're still going to be friends, but I'm going to this level and we may have to leave some behind. It was a hard realization even in my 20s and then in my 30s, choosing a path of entrepreneurship where a good chunk of my friends were traditional work, traditional jobs. And again, nothing wrong with it. But when my time was a lot less limited, I battled some of that where I wasn't as available. It wasn't that I wasn't available. I just made different decisions. And to not go to that party or this party or do this hangout. And to your point, there's a time when you move on and some of the folks don't want to move on with you. And there is some of those things, the jealousy, the envy, the irritation with you because you're not doing the things you used to do because you were supposed to stay the same, right? So shout out to anyone listening to this right now who has pivoted and decided to better their lives, better themselves, and to really honor the calling that they have on their life to do more. Something else you said that was really interesting was you didn't believe that you had anything to share.
mm-hmm.
And if I had $100 for every person who I've heard that from, including my own self-talk, if I had $100 for every person I've worked with over the last 20 years who felt that way, including, and if you're listening to this, I'm not going to call you about name by name, but if you're one of my friends and you haven't been on my podcast and I've invited you to the show, you've said this to me, these exact words. But it's something interesting about that self-talk, that who am I to have anything to share? But the beauty of each of us in our lives is that we all have unique experiences. We come from our place, we do our walk, we take our turns, we take our spills, we have our successes. And in all of that is something, a seed, right? A seed that could bless someone. And so I'm saluting you because I'm starting to understand what I've seen as a progression through social media for the last, 10, 15 years that we've known each other. So that's pretty cool. What is it about DISC? First of all, for the audience that doesn't know, what is DISC? What does it do? What is it for? And obviously, what do you score? What's your score on DISC?
All right. Well, once I explain what it is, mine's going to be super obvious. But DISC is a personality style assessment, and ultimately it assesses behavior. So it gives you an indication of how you behave in certain things, right? So each letter stands for a personality, and you're usually one or two or sometimes three, but you're generally a little bit of each one. So Darrell, you were saying that you're a DI, and so what that means is that you're very direct, you get to the point, you're all about getting it done. What's the task? Get it done, which is very important as an entrepreneur. Otherwise, nothing gets done. And then your I, which is what I am, your I is the very extroverted people person, the storyteller, the let's do all this together, it's going to be fun person, the social butterfly, the one who walks in the room and is just talking to everybody. And so it goes on and on. So the S is just more quiet. They're the team players. They're all about how's the family? Is everyone okay? They talk slower. They talk differently. They don't talk like this and they talk like that, like an I talks, but they're very quiet. And how can I help you today? How can I support you? I have a friend like that. And every time I talk to her, she says, how can I support you today? And I think, oh my gosh, that's so nice. It's just the way she's wired, that's how she operates. And then the C's, they're more analytical. They're the ones that are doing the numbers. Are the numbers going to add up? Let me show you my Excel spreadsheet. Here's the numbers. And they're not as interested in the people side. So I have all of them in me, and so do you. I'm sure that you said you took the test a few times, and it keeps coming back the same. The Maxwell DISC gives you, and I don't know which test you took, there's a million probably DISC options, but the Maxwell version comes back with 3 graphs, and the first graph is how you behave in public, and then the second graph is who you really are at your core, And then the third graph is who you think you are. And it's very interesting when people's graphs are different. And most of the time they are. Most of the time their public self is way different than who they are under pressure and how they operate. So yeah, I love DISC. It just intrigues me.
I love DISC for the thing that you just said, which is two things there. But the first one was I loved when DISC told me what my natural state and what my very first profile, because that's the only one I looked up. I'm sure I have the other couple, but the other one was the adapted state. And that is who you're adapting to be because the world requires that, because your job requires that, because the circumstance requires that, versus how you would really like to move and shake. And it was really interesting to see the contrast between those two states. And maybe my profile has that third, who you think you are. I actually be very interested to see if I haven't taken one probably in about 7 years.
Oh, it's time every 7 years.
Right. And I doubt it's going to change, but it is interesting, the different levels of insights. Like, I'm happy with myself, y'all. Let's be clear. I'm being funny. I'm not self-talking or self-deprecating. I'm happy with who I am. But I think there's something interesting about DISC, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we go. But every aspect, like the predominant aspects of every individual, D, I, S, or C, they all have to, organizations are made up of a collection of variations of people's strengths and natural states. You talked about your friend who's an S, and they're always asking how they can support you. I mean, organizations need those people. And the C person, which literally I don't like them in my meetings. I can spot them a mile away. I'm being funny. If you're a C and you've worked for me, I'm just saying, I wish you hadn't shown up to as many meetings. No.
Right. The I said that. The I just said
right.
that.
Because the C's are cautious. I use the word cautious or compliant, and they are not wanting anything to go outside the lines. And so you need your C's, especially if you want to stay out of trouble with the bank and the IRS and your finances and just flat out bad decisions, because you need those C's who will keep you in the lines. So I'm being hilariously trying to be funny here. If I'm not funny, and I hope I'm not offending anybody who's a C. And the S's, I love how you describe the S's. They just love to support. Because D's, we're a little much. We're very vague. We're very inspirational. We're very visionary driven. And we're just like, let's get it done at all costs, right? So it's a balance. Talk about the work that you do, or how you see organizations utilizing DISC, and how should an entrepreneur or business owner listening to this right now, if they've never used these in their organizations, how does DISC help inside of an organization, especially from a leadership standpoint, all the way down?
Yes. So it's important to know who you are first, right? You start with you, because that's where everything starts from. And I would suggest there's an actual entrepreneur DISC test that's made specifically for entrepreneurs and business owners. So
I didn't know that.
The results in your test and in your report they're catered more towards the entrepreneur. There's a sales section. There's a how are you selling to your people? How do you lead your team? All of these things are in there. So I would say start with that and know who you are. And it's not who you are, because I know you said, oh, I'm never going to change. That's who I am. I'm a DI. It's your behavior. It's not who you are. You're Darrell. That's who you are. But you behave in ways that are very direct and visionary and motivating and inspiring, just like you said. And there's little room for anyone else's opinion.
Ooh, that's not true, Stacy. That's not true.
No, it is.
No, I have to work on it. I admit. No, you're funny. No, I have had to learn over the years. And shout out to Nikki Scott if you're listening to this right now. Nikki was our operations manager for a number of years, and she'd walk in my office and say, hey, you got to let them talk. Hey. You ask them for something, but because they don't answer fast enough, you just walk. Nikki, shout out to you, because I've had to get some coaching on that. And Nikki inadvertently was my coach in this area for about 3 years, because I'm like, let's go, y'all. And so
That's
anyway,
right.
back to what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once you figure out how you're operating, because we mostly don't understand what's driving us. We're just who we are, and we're just walking through the day being ourselves. We're not thinking about, oh, do I talk too much? Is someone not getting a word in? Am I not detailed enough? You don't think about those things. So you start with your report. But then as far as corporations go, having everyone in the corporation take the test is super beneficial. And there's also an option for a group test. So what happens is, let's say it's a corporation with 100 people, and they're all, of course, in different departments. So everyone takes the test, and then I can offer them a group test, which puts everyone in a certain category to figure out, hey, is your accountant in the wrong position? Right? Is your accountant supposed to be a salesperson? Is your support system supposed to be an accountant? Right? Is someone else supposed to be a leader? And you'll find it's basically a blueprint. It's the cheat sheet. It's the answer. It's the, oh, that's why they don't get this done in time, or oh, that's why they seem to be unhappy here. And it opens their eyes to what's going on in the organization and how they can fix it and be more productive, because that's what it's all about. More productive, more sales, right? More success. And you can't have that when you have somebody like me in the accounting department, because although I like numbers, I don't want to do that all day. So I don't want to be there. And I just, yuck.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah.
I got a degree in finance, and I just told the story yesterday to someone. I didn't do well in accounting. I own a business. I have to look at P&Ls and balance sheets and numbers and cost flows and all this stuff. But I'd rather just look at the data and give an analysis or an opinion about what is matching. But I don't need to be the person putting all the data in place. And I did. I think I got a D in accounting, and I had to take it again. I just didn't get it. I think the thing that you talked about relative to knowing who you are first, I think is so important, because there are a lot of people today, and tell me if you agree, there are a lot of people today that are frustrated. They feel stuck. They feel like they're relegated to the role that they've taken because of the degree they got, or they are in a position where they had passion for it 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now they feel like something is pulling them, but they're not quite sure. And what I found, and tell me if this is what you believe in, is when you get to know through a process like DISC a little bit more about why your tendencies are the way they are, or why you've got nudgings or inclinations or intuitions, you start to connect that who you are, and it helps to open up your mind to the possibilities of your next level of growth. And I think it's super important it's a freeing experience to kind of either say, oh, so that's why I like this. Oh, that's why I don't like that. But when it comes to the connection in an organization, do you find, and I guess you can find this probably across the board, but doesn't it help businesses and individuals find the right seat on the bus, as Jim Collins would say in Good to Great? Isn't that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this could be done as a precursor to hiring people. Have them take the DISC test before you hire them for the job, because now you're getting them right at the start. You know where they're going to thrive. You know where they're going to do their best work. Maybe it's not the job they're applying for. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different options. There's actually also where you were talking about somebody getting uncomfortable where they were or just not feeling like they don't feel the gusto anymore, and maybe it's because they're shifting and it's just not them anymore, or like you said, they got a degree. And there's a career/student test that can be taken for people who are trying to figure out a new career. Where do I fit in? What are the things that, where would I fit in best? And it also still gives you all of the DISC things, but it gives you, how do I learn? Where do I thrive? What motivates me? What fills my soul with happiness? I mean, really, that's what it's all about. You need to be happy.
Yeah. So when you are working with organizations, are you coaching their CEO or founder and talking them through the potential challenges they may be having with team or staff? And I think if you ask a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, in the top 3 problems they could ever be facing in their business, people usually is in the top 3 answers if we're playing Family Feud.
Yes.
I've been doing this for a while. I think, so how do you begin in the process with a company, a founder, CEO, whatever that may look like? What do you do? Like, what are they complaining about? And then how do you get them to say and look at that DISC might be the place where you should start or where they should start?
Yeah. So I think what it comes down to is that if there's any kind of struggle, any kind of internal struggle where it feels like uh, it's not necessarily going to get so specific as, oh, that person doesn't talk to that person. It's just something's not flowing right, and they can feel that, and of course they can see it in their bottom line. So when they see that and I bring this to their attention, and of course you have to start at the top. You have to start at the C level, right? Just like shout out to Nikki coming in and saying, hey boss, chill. Okay, people will get the job done. Just calm down for a minute. And so they need to know how they're projecting, and then also figure out how these people need to hear things, right? It's the same thing as maybe giving accolades for something, giving rewards, right? Oh, you did this thing and now you get that. Well, not everybody wants that. Do not ever bring up the accountant in front of the meeting and say, great job, Bob. You really killed it this month. You're the best ever. Bob wants nothing to do with that. He's like, why did I even have to be at this meeting? I want to go home. I want to sit at my office, right? I just want to be alone with my numbers. Please don't put me in front of people. And so you're not motivating him by doing that. You're actually pushing him away. And until you know those things, right? Until they know who they're dealing with and how to present to them the right way, everything's still going to clash. People aren't going to get along. And when people don't get along, it's not good.
100%. That's interesting. And so you got involved or re-involved through Maxwell certified training and speaking with DISC, but I'd love to just pick your brain a little bit on your journey through Maxwell and with all of your experience as an entrepreneur and a leader. Talk about the most profound insight you gained going through the process.
So I have to go back to about 15 years when I first took the DISC test, because that's what triggered everything for me. I'm a high I, which means that I'm all about the people. I'm the social butterfly. When I come into the room, I'll talk to anybody. I usually won't shut up. And I was not the best salesperson because of that, because I was the one who was like, hey, it's me. Hey, here's my stuff. You're going to love my stuff. You got to get my stuff. You're going to love it. You are going to love it. I promise, right? People don't want that. You're laughing, but you're like, yeah, I know those people. Yeah. Oh, I remember when you did that. So at one point I had actually been, and this is a secret, so don't tell anybody, but I had been asked not to come back / blackballed from a networking group.
No way. You?
Yes, because I was too much. And I was in an MLM at the time. And so she also had some bad feelings over MLMs and whatnot, which I do not. I'm like, hey, business is business. Kill it any way you can. But yeah, she asked me not to come back because I was too much. So I went to another networking event where I was welcomed. And still I had no idea why I wasn't invited back. And someone started talking about DISC personality styles, and he gave examples of each style as the outgoing message on your voicemail. Now, today we have to use a different example because maybe you don't even have an outgoing voicemail. But he gave these examples, and I thought, oh my God, I can't believe that there's all these different people. And it seems so ridiculous to think that everyone was like me, but I did. It never occurred to me that somebody needed to hear things differently or be presented something differently. So I had taken that test, and then I was all in. I went to their trainings all the time. It was a sales training course, and I loved it. I loved everything about it, figuring out the inner workings of people. And, along the way, I realized, hey, uh, maybe I wouldn't have been divorced had I known this, because I just assumed that, he could read my mind and that he was just like me, and whatever message I put out is the message he heard. And that was not true. And so I know a lot more now about relationships. It's not just about business, but people aren't going to buy something based on, I want a better relationship with my son or my wife or my husband or my girlfriend or whatever it is. But they will do it for business. But what will happen is you'll realize it will trickle down right into your family life and into your personal life, and it'll change everything. And that's what it did for me. So when I was reintroduced to DISC, I said, oh yeah, I love it. Let me get back in there. Let me really get in there and learn this again. And I did. And that's where I am. That's my long version of my short story.
No, I appreciate your transparency. I mean, to say that, had you known about that, it might not have led to the other outcome, is an interesting, it's an interesting insight. And I think it's introspection that you wouldn't have gained otherwise. And I think we've all done things and said things and moved in a certain way where we caused more harm unintentionally than we thought we were harming, until the person or situation departed. I'm guilty as charged. I'm guilty as charged. So I know what that looks like. And to look back and say, oh, I can see how I was moving, and it wasn't that it was disintegrous. It just wasn't in alignment and in collaboration with the other person's style and feelings and needs. Mm-hmm. So I get it. Stacy, we're kind of running down on this time, and we could go 1,000 different ways, but I want you to share a little bit about how people can work with you, how you're helping people today, because you're a speaker, you're a coach, you're a trainer. But if someone's listening to this right now and they're intrigued by getting a little bit better idea as to who they are, so that they can lead better, grow better, maybe approach a pivot that they have been contemplating, how can people work with you and connect with you and get closer to you?
Yes. Well, they can start by going to thestacymulligan.com, and on there I have the DISC test, I actually have a DISC course, which then you take the test, and now you jump into this virtual course which walks you through all of it, because the report is wonderful, but then you might get the report and say, now what do I do with this? Well, that's something you can do with it. And I offer the group coaching with that as well. And if you're an entrepreneur, I'm telling you, you will be shocked at what comes in that report. The information is just amazing. And even if you just did that, it would change. It would change you. It would change the way you're operating, and maybe give you that boost to go to the next thing. So.
And what's the cost of the assessment, or is there a cost to it?
Yes, the assessment is $47, and so
okay. hasn't even gone up. That's it's been about the same price ever since I've known about it. Like, how do they make money? No, it's digital. My bad.
They don't. They don't.
Yeah. No, it's digital. They probably make a little something on the back.
Right.
Awesome. So someone should go to thestacymulligan.com. We'll link that up in the show notes. And if you're so inclined, take your DISC assessment, and then do they go into a free course, or is there something they have to invest in your course?
So they can invest in the full course, but I do offer, and for everyone that does it through this call, then I would do it. They get the module 1 for free. So that's the introduction to DISC. So when I was babbling on about D, I, S, and C, it will give you a much deeper understanding of those. So yeah.
Got it. Well, Stacy, I appreciate you being here today. It was really great to reconnect. Congratulations on your journey. The work that you're doing right now, and I really believe this is, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, if you're a leader in any way, shape, or form, and by the way, leadership is not just in business or entrepreneurship. Leadership is life. Like, you're leading you through this thing called life. And I think I've taken that very seriously over my life. And it's interesting to think that we know what we know when we know it because we've done it or because we've walked that way. But sometimes it's a trap. Sometimes that behavior is a trap. And we are doing things unconsciously or even consciously that is actually out of alignment with the rest of the folks around us and really what we're trying to get to. So I'd encourage you to go over to the stacymulligan.com and take the test and take the assessment get the insights as to, again, first who you are, and then apply that to what it is that you're working on, whether that's building a better company culture, getting better team members around you, understanding where you're blowing it. Because I know that's something that we have to come to grips with all the time. And you'll get some great value out of that. Stacy, what else is exciting about what you're doing? Talk to us about the speaking side of your business, and then we'll kind of bring this to a close.
Okay, so I am a speaker as well, more on storytelling, keynote speeches, but everything is, of course, going to be a story, but it's going to have a lesson. And one that is true to my heart, besides getting out of your comfort zone, that's one of my talks, get out of your own way, and here's how, and here's what'll happen. But one that's near and dear to my heart that I'm currently living is life beyond motherhood, and how you may have prepared your child to get out in the world, but it never occurred to you to prepare yourself. And I found myself in that spot not that long ago, and I had to figure out who I was, because for 20 years I was Joey's mom, and that was it. I was Joey's mom. Everything revolved around that. That was my one job, and I loved that job. And I found myself in a place where I didn't know what to do anymore. And I don't want women, fathers the same, but women are different, mothers are different, and especially mothers of boys. I don't want them to feel that way. I don't want them to go through that or be blindsided like I was. So I have a talk on getting through the empty nest.
Wow, that's fascinating. Man, powerful realization. Like, that was my job, and now I don't have that job anymore, but I hadn't prepared myself for what I would do without that job. Oh my gosh, that talk's going to land. Yeah. There are moms right now. If you're listening to this right now, you get that. Like, I can feel the pain of that, if you will. It is different for men. Let me be clear. I'm a dude who has three kids on my side and two on Ashley's side. When they get past 20, I know what it's like. I've only got one, and last one, and she's 19, and she's doing her own thing. So, but it is definitely different for the male. So, Stacy, really glad you could be here today. Thank you for being on the MindShift podcast. And for those of you listening, be sure to pop over to thestacymulligan.com. Check out Stacy, follow her work. She's a part of John Maxwell leadership, and I know that has taken her to the next level. She's already been a great entrepreneur. I love the insights you shared today, Stacy. And for those of you who have not yet done so, hit the follow, hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening and or watching to this podcast. Without your support, we would not be here, going on almost 5 years. So for those of you who've been with me, ride or die, since July of 2019, thank you so much. I see the numbers. I see that you're still paying attention. Some of y'all have dropped off, but I'll take that. That's on me. I must not be doing well with the content. So we're working on that. We're restructuring our team at MindShift. But thank you so much for being here today and giving us your time. And we'll see you on another episode of the MindShift podcast. Talk to you soon. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.